Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Do you know that having absolute proof of a non-human intelligent presence on Earth makes all these other stories we've heard over the decades much more believable? That's what I want to talk about today. For instance, the recent Compton alien incident, which by the way, is something that I will be the subject of a new podcast that I will be a part of, along with crime scene reconstruction expert Scott Roeder. It's going to be called Absolute Proof with Scott Roeder and Jim Quirk, and it will be premiering sometime this week. And I can tell you this, that Scott Roeder has done some tremendous work on this. He shared some of that work with me over the weekend. Some of the things that him and his assistant, Luis Castillo, have done is amazing. And he has done some interviews with the affected parties, the ones who captured this ring camera footage. So we will be talking about that in our first episode, which will be premiering sometime this week. And I will let everyone know on Spotify as well as on YouTube when that show launches. So you're going to want to not miss that. But for instance, though, here's the thing. And a lot of people have their opinions about the Compton alien so far. But because we have absolute proof now that shows there's no question that there's an alien presence here, based on what we discovered within that Las Vegas alien incident, there's no question now that there's something here. We have the evidence. We see it with our own eyes. And when we consider that all of the elements of that story, we put them all together, we realize that there's just no going backward now, right? So we actually have the absolute proof, and it just opens the door for everything else, like the Compton alien. Okay, some people think it might be a bird, or I heard some guy wrote on my channel that it might be somebody carrying a bag of garbage. Okay, I don't think that's the case whatsoever. But here's the thing: it could be extraterrestrial / non-human intelligent creature as well, because they're real. They're really here. And then for another story we talked about last week was the crazy South Carolina tree creature from 2022. A friend of the channel, John Hobart, pointed out what he believes is at least one creature in the tree. We looked at that last year. We couldn't really see anything. There's something's shaking this tree in this guy's backyard. He's trying to figure out what it is. He says he can't see anything. He doesn't know what it is. Every time he gets under the tree, he says something throws us. They're throwing sticks at him. He says he was saying there were more than one, he thought, but he couldn't see anything. And when you look at that video, you can't really see anything. Now, John Hobart has isolated one portion of that video, and now we can see what looks like could be some kind of a creature, right? Now, of course, I've heard other people chiming in the comment section, and they all have other people have different ideas. Some people think it is something. I would say probably a majority of people agree with John Hobart's assessment, but there are some people who say, "Oh, I think it's bears." Because bears do that. They do that kind of thing. And actually, they'll throw stuff from trees and stuff too. The problem is, when you're watching that video, you don't see any bears. You see nothing. Absolutely nothing. You can't see anything. And the guy's shining a very bright flashlight on that tree, and you can't see what's shaking those branches. Except when he moves the light away in that one portion of the video, it looks like you could see what looks like a figure responsible for shaking those branches and causing the tree to break some of those branches off. Now, I received another comment from someone who thinks that it's just pareidolia, and that what we're really seeing is the clouds, the sky in the background behind the trees. Like when he takes the flashlight down, that what you see is basically pareidolia. You're just thinking that there's something there. Okay, that's fine if you want to believe that, but at the same time, it could be non-human intelligence. You know why it could be? Because we know for a fact they are here, right? We know for a fact they are here now. Just recently, Ross Coulthart was doing an interview with Jesse Michaels, and he intimated that there's an alien base somewhere in Arizona, and that he has learned this from his contacts within the Department of Defense as well as the intelligence community. And a lot of these people aren't even connected to each other, but they have told him privately that there's a base in Arizona where these aliens are. Richard Dolan, during his podcast the past week, talked about that, as well as another story about an alien base that Bruce Maccabee had learned from a lieutenant colonel from the United States Air Force named Ernie Kellerstars. This guy told Bruce Maccabee, the late Bruce Maccabee, who died last year, that there's a base in Nevada. And there's been other stories. There's bases all over the world, in different spots of the world. People have alleged over the decades. Mount Shasta, out in the ocean, under the ocean. Some people believe in that, like in the Catalina Island area. There's been a lot of reports of UFOs over the years, and some people think that there could be a base there. Now that we have absolute proof, right, that shows that there's a presence here, there's no doubt about it. These stories aren't like figments of anyone's imagination. You can't put imagination onto a cell phone video, right? You can't do that, right? That's impossible. So we see actual creatures in that Vegas video, and when you take all the information with regards to that story in its totality, you realize that this really happened. That something landed in a yard. The object that landed became invisible somehow. Lots of creatures apparently exited this thing. They heard footsteps, and also witnesses said they saw two tall, 8 to 10 foot tall creatures, alien creatures, creatures that could not have been human, in the backyard. And then when we examine that video, not only do we see tall creatures, we see short creatures. We see creatures all over the place. There's faces popping up and in and out throughout that video. So now that we know there's something here, all of these other stories, like the idea that there could be alien bases in Nevada, in Arizona, under the ocean, out off the California coast, other places throughout the world, right? Those stories become more believable. Everything now becomes more believable, right? And it has to be a sad day, really a sad time for people within the debunker cult. It really has to be a tough time. They must be really having trouble dealing with this at this point, I would have to imagine. I know that some of them are probably suffering with cognitive dissonance, right? They just don't want to accept it, and plus they don't like the idea that they were wrong the whole time, and they don't want to be shown up, and it's too late. They've already been shown up. It's over. It's over. So everything else now is on the table, as you have to say. For instance, like people who didn't believe that the Ariel school was something that really happened. Okay, well, what do you say now? You see that there's alien creatures. They're real. So that means that all those, for one thing, right, I can't see how anybody could have disbelieved that story in the first place. How could you not believe that story when you have over 60 kids saying that they saw aliens and a flying saucer? How could you not believe a bunch of little elementary school kids? And they maintain that same story for all these decades. But now, you could say, see, they described what the creatures look like. When you put the creature that they described in the Ariel school up to what we see in the Las Vegas alien video, you say, okay, there, see, that's what the kids said. They saw something that looked like this, right? So, like I said, everything has changed now. Everything becomes much more believable. And I think it affirms a lot of these previous cases where people had trouble accepting the reality of them. Look, Lonnie Zamora from 1964, Pascagoula in 1973. There's just so many different cases now that you could look back on and say, we didn't. Like, a lot of people would say, well, I don't know. Even people in the UFO community are not sure if they believe it or not. Well, now those stories become much more believable when you see the evidence. The story of that Whitley Strieber wrote about in books like Communion. I mean, obviously he wasn't making that up. He was really experiencing these kinds of things. He was getting abducted by creatures like that. Just like what we see in this Las Vegas video. Everything has changed now because of this. It should be. In anyone's mind, there's no doubt anymore. Should be absolutely no doubt at this point in time. The fact that there could be alien bases, and I think this is something. Could you imagine? Okay, this is one of the reasons, and this is something that Dolan talked about during his show. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons for the cover-up, right? Of course, the reverse engineering aspects. I think that's number one in my mind. Like, I've always maintained that, because if you're whoever the country is that first is able to successfully reverse engineer one of these recovered crafts, they're going to have supremacy over every other enemy country on this planet. There's just no question about it with that kind of technology. So that's why one of the biggest reasons for the secrecy. The other reasons are if things like alien bases on Earth. I mean, people hear that, and it's going to freak a lot of people out. You would have to imagine. I mean, the fact that they are set up. They set up shop here, and I mean, that's understandable. And I've thought this, my whole life. I mean, ever since I started seriously realizing when I finally realized that this was a real phenomenon, when I finally came to accept the unbelievable, because it was unbelievable to me even at one time. Even though I had an experience when I was a kid, I didn't know what that was. I had no idea that aliens could go into people's houses and do that kind of thing. That's what happened to me. I wake up in the middle of the night and there's something in the room that's not human, right? And somehow everyone else in the house was conked out during this whole incident, even though I'm screaming at the top of my head, terrified, right? No one else is waking up. My brother right across from me, screaming right directly toward him, and he's not waking up. My mom and dad aren't waking up. Nobody's waking up, and there's a sound in the room. There's no question, right, that something was there. But I didn't know what it was. I had no idea. From my experience up to when I was almost 9 years old, in my mind, I was thinking the only thing I could imagine is that it must be something from hell, right? That's it. I couldn't think of anything else, and it took me a long time, like I've always stated, at least 10 years to realize that it must have been extraterrestrial, because I guess 10 years or so went by and I'm watching documentary about alien abduction, and then I started thinking about it after that, and I eventually came to the conclusion that it had to be extraterrestrials. And then of course I saw a UFO in 1994 up close during a fishing trip. And over the years, right, since 1947, how many pictures, how many of these craft have been captured on camera and film? I mean, it's too much to count at this point. There's been so many different reports, so many different encounters that people have talked about that they had. Like, for instance, Donald Shrum back in California in 1964. Him and two of his buddies went hunting, and he got lost, and he decided to, he was going to sleep in a tree overnight because he was concerned about a wild animal coming up if he was sleeping on the ground. So he decided to sleep up in a tree, and then he sees a giant mothership show up, and then a little craft comes out of that, and the next thing you know, there's these creatures that are trying to get him out of that tree all night long, and he had a battle with these aliens and a robots actually on top of it. I mean, it was an incredible story. I've talked about that on the show before. Stories like that, all of these things now become much more believable now that we have the absolute proof that we could always point to and say, well, yeah, it must have happened because, we actually have proof that these things are here. Like, somebody says, oh, I think that the Compton alien is a bird. Well, yeah, maybe, but I don't think so. But I think it's an alien because actually aliens are real because of this now, right? Because of this. You can't discount it now. Right? I know you could talk about, people could argue about where these things come from, right? In fact, I'm going to be interviewing somebody this week, actually tomorrow on Monday, on this very topic, who's written a book. We'll get into that tomorrow about that. I mean, and they could be. I mean, things could be here. They could be generated on this planet. They could have been here the whole time, right? I don't know. Nobody could really say one way or the other, really, right? But one thing that that cannot be denied at this point is that there is some form of non-human intelligence with us based on what we have. Everything else is on the table now, and the idea that they have alien bases here makes sense, and they would have alien bases here. Like Richard Dolan pointed out, he said, it doesn't make sense for something to come here from great distance, right, and then travel back to their planet for and then travel back and forth, right, millions of light years all the time. That doesn't make sense. No, you would come here, you would set up shop here, and you would stay here. That's what I think has happened. I think that started at some point in the long past. Who knows how long ago? We could look back to 1947 and think that might have been the beginning of this. I don't know. We really can't say. But they're since that time, right? It seems to be that there has been something here, and they're very concerned about what we're doing with our weapons, like nuclear weapons, for instance. They're concerned about that. They're concerned about us for some reason. They seem to abduct people on a regular basis. They slaughter cows for reasons unknown. All we could do is guess about all of these things, right? But the bottom line is we know that they're here now. All of those things, right? All of those stories from the past where people wondered if, for instance, are aliens responsible for cattle mutilations? Well, we have no evidence other than that, really. Most of the evidence points in that direction, because what else could it be? No person's ever been caught doing that. A lot of these things couldn't be the product of carnivorous predators. No, it couldn't be that, because the animals that were killed, that were slaughtered, had parts removed surgically with laser precision, like cauterized wounds, blood completely removed from the body. There's just too many different aspects to the cattle mutilation phenomenon that points in one direction. And on top of it, ranchers over the years who have been were concerned about losing cattle over this, right, would stake out their properties overnight, and sometimes they would see weird objects. So what else could it have been? It's not the government. Why would the government do it? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Why would the government do cattle mutilations, right? If they wanted to mutilate cows for some crazy experiment, they would just buy them themselves and mutilate them in secret. Right? They wouldn't do what has been happening over the decades, since at least 1967, right? So all of this stuff, we're just in a point now where all these stories from the past, the ideas that there could be alien bases right here on Earth, and who knows, maybe on the moon for all we know, other places in the solar system for all we know, we just don't know. But I would imagine that they most certainly have some bases here, and also this could explain a lot of the disappearances that have occurred, especially out in the wild, in certain areas of this planet. People go into national forests, for instance, and they disappear. Does it have something to do with aliens? It could, right? It could. Yeah, most certainly it could. You know why it could? Because we know that they're real and that they are here. People need to start getting that through their thick skulls. People who are on the fence about this, there's no fence to be on. The fence fell apart over a year ago when we made that presentation showing without a doubt that there's creatures here. There's no fence to sit on anymore. And if you're still sitting on it, you're basically floating in air, because there's nothing there. And you're like the Wile E. Coyote hanging out over a cliff. Right? You take a look down, right? That's a long drop. That's what it is, though, folks. I think that we're at a point now, this absolute proof of the presence changes everything. It changes everything. It opens the door for everything else. It makes all these other stories so much more believable now. The idea of alien bases doesn't sound as absurd because we see that there's really something here, right? Just like people have been talking about for all these decades. There's something really here. And I'll even take it a step further. I mean, we were talking recently about the Wall Street Journal and the ridiculous article that it came out with recently, an attempt to debunk it with comments from the former Arrow director, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. I mean, to me, right, the debunkers, like, and these people from the government that make these statements, the stuff that they say is actually more absurd than the idea of aliens, actually, at this point. And to me, I wonder if they're doing this on purpose. Maybe this is the government's way, right? Because their explanations that there's nothing here, right, and the way they gaslight everyone with regard to this. Anybody who has a half a brain in their skull, right, would be able to see right through this. Right? There's just no question about it. They would be able to see right through this. So I'm starting to wonder. I mean, this is just something new that's been I've been wondering, because the explanations from the government, even when you go as far back as Roswell, that was ridiculous too. I think what might be happening here is they're deliberately telling these ridiculous stories because they're in a position where they cannot tell the truth because they don't know what would happen. So instead, what they do, they deliberately provide these ridiculous explanations. They take measures to provide absurd reasons for what people are seeing and what has been happening over the years. I mean, it's just, so you have to think maybe it's being done on purpose, so people just thinking so a person who has the ability to add 2 and 2 and come up with 4 could add in their minds, hey, wait a minute, they're just telling us this, I think, because there's no way that what they're saying is true. They have to know that this isn't true. I'm not that dumb to believe something like that. I mean, there are people who are dumb enough to believe it or not, right? But a lot of people who are smart will think to themselves, they must be doing this on purpose. Either they're gaslighting us and they're just desperate to keep this a secret forever, or maybe this is their way of telling us the truth. They're doing this on purpose because they can't tell us, so they have to lie, throw out absurd lies, and then this way you just know, okay, the government cannot talk about this. Yeah, we could talk about it here, right? But they cannot. There's no way the government is at this point in time is ready to reveal the truth to the public, and that's why they have to tell these absurd lies. That's their way, though. The government's way of telling the truth. I mean, either that or they really are covering it up, and it is they think everyone's stupid. I don't know. You have to, all these different ideas go through my head these days because I can't understand. Now, there was a second part to that Wall Street Journal, which was just as ridiculous as the first part. It's like Sean Kirkpatrick, he just keeps lying and lying over and over again, and there's so many people could see right through it. I mean, even people who are I would imagine that actually stories like that would have to make even people like Mick West blush, right? I mean, they're just so absurd to say that the Malmstrom incident from 1967 was actually the testing of some new electromagnetic machine. I mean, and they didn't tell the people that were working there at the time where nuclear missiles were in silos. I mean, they're not going to tell the people that are working there, oh, we're going to do this test on this to see what happens, but we won't tell those guys. I mean, it was absurd. And then you find out, you come to learn after Kirkpatrick makes these statements that the technology that he was talking about wasn't developed until the 1970s. So how were they using it back in 1967 then? It's the same kind of ridiculous story that they talked about with Roswell, right? They come out with that book, the Roswell Report, Case Closed, back in 1997, to explain to explain alien bodies, right? And they say it was anthropomorphic dummies that were dropped from the skies from 1953 to 1959. So, okay, you're saying it's dummies, but the people that saw the dummies got mistaken with their years, right? They're so stupid. All of these people are so stupid. They thought it was they were remembering 1947. No, they must have been remembering some year between 1953 and 1959 in another part of the country, by the way, too. Not even in the Roswell area where this incident happened. So that right there, I mean, to me, isn't that a way of admitting? Right, when you tell ridiculous stories like this, like the government has told these ridiculous stories, the dummy story, now you hear this new Malmstrom story, right? I mean, you have to think to yourself, wait, they must really think we're stupid or something. Or maybe they're this is their way of admitting it, of telling the truth, right? By telling these ridiculously absurd stories that could be easily debunked, right? Easily debunked. The Roswell story was debunked immediately as far as I was concerned. I mean, there was a lot of research done up to that point, and there was more research done after that point that even further solidified the reality that incident really happened, right? So maybe that's the game, right? Maybe that's the game. I mean, okay, we'll just tell them the most absurd story as we possibly can, which doesn't prove a thing, right? And then we'll just let it out there, and people who are smart will be able to, connect the dots. The dummies out there, they'll just believe it, right? And actually, there were people who believed the dummy stories. I mean, the media they ran with it. They acted like, oh, that explains it all, because they've been conditioned. People have been conditioned over the decades, right? Because of efforts by the government to think that the whole notion of alien visitation is silly, right? So a lot of people feel that way, and so they will believe the dummy story. Oh, that explains it. Yeah, anybody who says there's aliens is stupid or drunk or dumb or whatever, a high on dope, stuff like that. I mean, that's what they do, or lying, whatever. It's a hoax, that kind of stuff. Had the mainstream media done an exhaustive investigation into the Roswell incident, they would have came to the same conclusion that a lot of independent researchers came to, that there's no question that something happened there. I mean, you had independent researchers study that case over many years. I mean, it started in 1978, and then there Don Schmidt and Kevin Randall, Thomas Carey, Stanton Friedman. There's a lot of people who have been studying this over the decades, talked about the Roswell incident, talked to a lot of the different witnesses. I mean, had the mainstream media done the same kind of research, they would have came to the same conclusions as those guys did, right? There's just too many witnesses here. There were too many witnesses that had a piece of that puzzle. And when you put all those pieces together, it tells you that, oh yeah, something crashed here, alien bodies were discovered, it was covered up, and so on and so forth. And I think that now, because now that we have the absolute proof, right, we could say, yeah, obviously I mean, now it even strengthens it, even that cases like Roswell even further, right? You say, oh yeah, they're obviously the government's lying. They're still lying. They won't even acknowledge the Las Vegas incident. They won't even respond to any of the emails or letters that I sent out, right? They can't. What are they going to say? What are they going to say about it? I mean, they could if they would have wrote something back or responded in a way where they say, yeah, this doesn't prove anything, right? Okay, well, tell me why then. See, they can't do that. Nobody can do that. Mick West turned down $5,000 because he can't do it. And I have to wonder, what will someone like him say, or any other debunker, when it comes to something like the Compton alien? What are they going to tell us there? Is it the traveling puppeteer troupe that showed up? I mean, what kind of absurd explanation are they going to provide for that? Like they did for the Ariel School incident. They said it was a traveling puppeteer troupe. That's what was responsible. I mean, that's absurd, obviously, right? For so many different reasons that you don't even need to say. Or maybe that's what was in the tree in South Carolina back in 2022. Maybe it was a faction of Mick West Flying Circus, a rogue puppeteer troupe that decided to hook a bunch of strings up to the trees and have a bunch of puppet operators pulling on the branches, tearing them down. I mean, what's the explanation going to be from with regard to a case like that? They could say something silly like that, but here's the bottom line: we could all point out, and now all of us can point to the Vegas stuff now and say, well, it could be some sort of a non-human intelligence, because look, we have evidence that there is something really here with us right now. Look at all of this stuff here we got right here. So that means, yeah, there could be there could have been some sort of an NHI in that tree, right? There could be an alien that was walking by that porch in Compton on June 6th, right? That could be an alien, because we know they're real, right? All of these things, everything has changed now. The base out in Nevada, alleged bases out in Nevada and Arizona, that sounds much more believable, right? I mean, obviously, especially considering when you think the Vegas case, that craft landed in Vegas. That's in Nevada. Maybe they were trying to get back home and something went wrong. They were trying to get back to their secret base that they have out there somewhere, and something happened with the craft, and it had to make an emergency landing for reasons unknown to make those repairs, right? Maybe that's what it was. Probably that's what it was. I mean, it could be, who knows, right? But I think that's the biggest reason right there. That's probably what it was. They needed to make a quick landing somewhere, anywhere, right? Before they crashed and all got killed. And they needed to come down in someone's backyard, even though they don't want to be seen by anyone, but they had no choice, right? They had no choice for that moment. And as we know, there was a witness who was in Arizona, right beneath Nevada there, who saw 2 UFOs show up in the area where that object went down, right? We have that too. So obviously all of this stuff becomes much more believable now because we have that evidence. All the idea of alien bases here on this planet, alien abduction, cattle mutilation, all of these things, right? They're all so much more believable now because we could show you now. You don't believe this? You don't think it's possible? Well, guess what? It is possible. You know why? Because here, look at this evidence we have. It shows that there are aliens here. There's something here. Well, I don't know, Maybe they're not aliens from another world, right? They're from someplace, though. Maybe they're from here. Whatever they are, they're non-human intelligent beings that are here, and we have evidence of it now. And they obviously they can do things that we can't do. I mean, to make themselves invisible like that. I mean, I don't think we can have that technology. I don't think we have that kind of technology at this point in time. Not like what they got, anyhow. I know we have some invisibility technology at this point. Some of it's primitive invisibility technology, camouflage technology, but I don't think it's anything like we see in that Vegas video. Nothing like that. And we know that that's real because the video was authenticated by experts, and also we had the testimony from the family, the 911 call, all of that stuff. So all of that makes everything else much more believable. And it ends the careers actually of the debunkers. I mean, what are they talking about now? I mean, all of the stuff that we see in the leaked Pentagon videos could be extraterrestrial NHI. Could be, right? You can't deny it now. We have the proof. We have proof that shows that there is something here. So when these people debate these issues online for, just, I don't know why. Again, it's all tiring. I mean, there's something here. Why are we debating it still? But people still want to debate it. No, there's nothing to debate anymore. There's something here. We should be talking about, we should be talking about what Ross Coulter's talking about. Alien bases in Nevada, or excuse me, in Arizona, or like Richard Dolan's talking about, alien bases in Nevada and under the ocean, other places in the world. We should be talking about stuff like that. We should be talking about alien abduction. We should be talking about the alleged hybridization program, right? We should be talking about those things, right? Because we know that they're here now. So why are we wasting time debating on whether this UFO might be just a kite or just a plane and it's just misidentified? Why? Who cares? That doesn't matter. That doesn't mean nothing anymore. It doesn't matter. Like UFO pictures, UFO videos really don't matter at this point. We know that it's already solved. There's something here. That's it, right? So some of these things are going to be real. Some of these things are going to be NHI. Some of them aren't, right? What does it matter? NHI is here. That's the bottom line. That's the part we need to start realizing here. That's why people need to snap out of it. Wake up. What are we doing? We should be talking about the reality now. The reality of the situation is we are not alone. That's the bottom line, folks. We are not alone. Everything else, all these stories you've heard over the decades, a lot of them have absolutely no proof to go along with them. Some of them do. Some of them have landing trace, physical evidence, physical trace evidence left behind, right? Some of them have footprints in the ground, right? Some of them have alien implants taken out of alien abductees, right? All of that stuff now, yeah. Obviously, this is happening. Implants, alien implants, that's real now. That has to be real, right? There's no explanation for it. That person was getting abducted. Some of them consciously remember these things, right? A lot of times they have to use hypnosis to get those memories back. But bottom line is, all these people, they must be telling the truth, right? Obviously now, because we have evidence that shows the same kind of creatures these people have been talking about. We see them now. We see them. They're really here, and the government's lying about it. Like a lot of us know. So I guess that's what I just want. The point I want to make today is that the absolute proof changes everything. Having absolute proof makes everything so much more believable now. It boosts every story you've ever heard. A lot of times people don't have the evidence to back up what they're trying to tell you, and then what do they do? What happens to them? They get ridiculed by debunkers for the rest of their lives. Well, that's over with now. That should be over with now. There's nothing to. Those people were telling the truth because obviously there's something here. Why would they wouldn't make up something like that? And obviously you see with your own eyes now that there's something here. So that's the point, folks. The point is this. Absolute proof has changed everything. All of these things are more believable now. Alien bases, alien abduction, cattle mutilation, all of it. Everything is real because guess what? It is real. It's really happening. I don't think anybody should worry about it because there's nothing you could do. There's absolutely nothing you could do about it. Don't be scared. There's nothing you could do about it anyway. It's just a fact of life. It's a fact of our existence is that we are not alone. And when you think about how expansive this universe is, right? What's it? Over 700 quintillion planets in the universe, right? That's a lot. And there's a million trillions in 1 quintillion. I mean, that's absurd. Now, of course, all those planets wouldn't be able to have life, but I mean, a great number of them would. A great number of them would. So obviously we're not alone. I think they're coming from other worlds, and I think if we last longer, if the human race is able to hang on for another 10, 20,000 years, we'll be doing the same thing that these I think are visitors. We'll be able to do a lot of the same things that they're doing, maybe even sooner. Who knows? If we're able to reverse engineer their technology. And figure out exactly how they're able to do what they do, right? If in our life, I don't know, within the next 100 years, 200 years, right? I don't know about in our lifetimes, but if we're able to reverse engineer these things successfully, and our scientists are able to take the next step and advance, evolve, if science is able to evolve. Right now, science doesn't believe it's possible, but that's going to change. It has to change because obviously there's other more intelligent beings that have figured some stuff out that our scientists don't think is possible. So obviously our scientists are just at this point dumb, for lack of a better word, dumb overall. Now I'm sure some of them have ideas and they're a lot smarter than some of their peers, but at the same time, science overall compared to these beings, dummies. We're not anywhere near where these creatures are. Give us some time, we'll get there. But the bottom line is this, folks. Absolute proof has changed everything. Anyway, I just want to say this. I want to say thank you all for joining me. Until next time.